Hello, hello, truth seekers all over the world. This is Matthew from Back to the Covenant. Hope you're having an amazing day wherever you're at in the world, whenever you may be watching this. So I apologize. I couldn't do this stream last Thursday. I had the crud and it was brutal, but I'm back. So this is episode 22. I'm running out of fingers. So of the Truth About Cosmology series, and this one is going to be called Repackaging Babylon. I'm blessed again to have my homie Josh from Founder Earth Brothers on to attack this topic. But first, before I bring Mr. Josh on, let me say what's up to some folks in the chat. All right, Deep Holes, what's up, Gary? Tracy Jones, Tyler Porter, there he is. Don Carney, Jeremy from Cover Cover, what's up, brother? Donna Porter, I think I already said her name. Wait, nope. Lisa Sivier, pardon moi if I did not pronounce your name correctly. There's Wendy. All right, Don Carney. Let me bring Mr. Josh on.
Hello, family.
What's up, sir?
Great to be back in action.
How's your sleep schedule with that little baby?
Perfectly awesome. Minus
Perfectly
the sleep part.
like, woo!
Yep. We're on his
Minus the
now.
sleep. Yep. You got a fresh one out the oven.
Child number 5. Keeping
I was about to say, what is this, number 18?
It feels like it.
Oh man, he's got almost a basketball team going up there. Maybe a football team in a couple years. Just kidding.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into it if you're ready, brother. So we're going to be talking about repackaging Babylon. So before we jump into the notes, got a couple PSAs. So if you're not already aware, let me make this full screen. Cover our ugly faces. What do you say? You have a radio face?
Yeah, face for radio. That's what they tell me.
So the book that me and Josh, he just happens to be on here. How awesome. The book that we worked on together and co-authored is available. So it's easy to find on Amazon, and it's actually in Dave Weiss's app if you prefer to find books that way. But it's real easy. You just click the books section, and it's actually right at the top because I hit him up today and he threw it in there. I guess because he knows how awesome we are.
Yeah.
But there's a link in the description as well to make it easy. And then we have another PSA. So me and Josh are going to combine forces like we did. When was it, in April? We did the last one. Have a local meetup.
Remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was April this year. I've hounded him enough and people have hounded us both enough to put one together. So we're gonna do it in a couple weeks on October 16th. So the time is going to be 12 to 7 p.m. And that's Eastern Standard Time, since it's here in Georgia. And the location is Joseph T. McConnell Park. And the address, you see it on the screen. So if you have any questions, hit me up with the email. My email is almost always, it should be in the description box. You want to touch on the meetup for a couple minutes, Josh?
Yeah, for those of you coming, if you're wondering what the environment's going to be like, it's kid-friendly. I picked a place that has an actual park on it's a fenced-in park, so you don't have to worry about the kids running into the main highway that's right next to it. But we get fenced in, thankfully. But yeah, it's going to be a laid-back gathering with, I think you said Mikey Jenny agreed to come on and speak, so that will be awesome. Him coming out, people sharing testimonies. It's always a blast. The most humble, awesome people in the world seem to just unite at these gatherings. And so everyone I've been to so far has been a blessing. And like I think you said last time, you just felt like revived or rejuvenated right after because of just the amount of light that people bring to these events. They have all these beautiful testimonies, and they are just humble people. It makes it so much more fun being around
everybody
people.
has something good to share.
Yeah.
And it's like recharging your spiritual battery. There's nothing like getting in a room full of like-minded people. There's nothing like it because everybody goes to work every day, and you work 40 hours, however many hours, around a bunch of non-believers most of the time, and you can't relate to them, and they start talking about just nonsense like sports or worldly stuff, and you're just like, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about real stuff, scripture, whatever. So there's nothing like being around it. So if you do have any questions, you can email me or email Josh at, what's your email?
It's our old channel name, flatearthbrothers@gmail.com. And so I should have changed it something simple like feb@gmail.com, but nah, too many people had it. Too many people
Shorter
had
is
it.
better. Yes, it's kind of hard now having it for years and then changing it. It's like, oh, I can't reach Josh anymore. So that was a good idea to keep it. But shorter is better. All right. So if you have any questions, and if you do come, please bring food because we never know how many people will be there. That's not an obligation, but if you want to bring a food offering, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, these events, we try to keep them free. I don't want people charging an admission fee. So it's like a family gathering. You bring food. If you want to make a donation, you can. But yeah, it's usually, it's one of those things where just have fun and don't, some people come expecting us to make it like a conference, and it's not that at all yet. Maybe we'll do that someday, but I like the laid back approach. And the other thing, if you do come, bring a chair. I put a note in my email that I sent to everybody because they have like picnic tables. They don't have like a lot of chairs, and we never know if we're going to have 40 people or 70. We don't know. So yeah, bring a chair if you like to sit down.
And your awesome self. All right, so let's jump in. Let's talk about Babylon.
Let's go.
So we're going to start off with scripture, and I will have to say, let me comment on this real quick. So I will probably mention this series a couple of times during this video, but if you have not already watched, I know Tyler in the chat has already watched all the way through Sean Griffin's Investigating Babylon series. If you want to throw that in the chat, Tyler, that's cool. I don't care. And I might, maybe after the stream's over, I might pin the first part. It's an amazing series. So me and Josh are going to talk about Babylon tonight, and it's very hard to talk about this subject for about 2 hours and really give it the time that it needs, and for lack of a better term, do it justice, because we could have 300 slides and still not scratch the surface on how much information this is. That's why Sean had to do 21-part series. So if you haven't already seen it, all right, Wendy says she's seen it too. If you haven't already seen Investigating Babylon all the way through, I would highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. It was amazing. And then after I watched that series, this verse I'm about to read, it gave it a whole new meaning. And it reads, Ecclesiastes 1:9, what has been is what shall be. What has been done is what shall be done. And there is no new matter under the sun. So I think it reads in the King James, there's nothing new under the sun. So this verse is so true, especially with all the Babylonian teachings, traditions, and practices that show up all over the world. And we're going to cover quite a few of them this evening. You want to read this one, brother? Or is it too long for you?
Sure. Help me with the big words, though. and all the earth had one language and one speech. And it came to be, as they set out from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar. And they dwelt there. And they said to each other, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. Sorry. And they had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens, and make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered over all the face of the earth. Then Father came. There's that word there, that Hebrew word is, what is that Hebrew word there where it says then? I didn't know if you wanted me to.
Oh, that's the Father's name. Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
However you pronounce it.
Father, I didn't want to try to pronounce it and butcher it. Then Father, I always say Father like the beloved Son did.
I know you say
Father.
So I don't really care. That's fine.
Okay.
That's
then Father came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And Father said, look, they are one people, and they all have one language. And this is what they begin to do. And now they are not going to be withheld from doing whatever they plan to do. So come, let us to go there and confuse their language, so that they do not understand one another's speech. And Father scattered them from there over the face of all the earth. And they left off building the city. That is why its name was called Babel, because there Father confused the language of all the earth, and from there Father scattered them over the face of all the earth. That's why we
So,
have different languages in different places.
so the
It's so cool.
actual word, if you look it up in the Hebrew, means confusion. Hopefully, everybody knows that at this point.
Mhm.
And that that is another reminder, just like many other times where you have children and names of cities, that has to do with what's going on at the time. So, especially names of
Mhm.
people. So, Babel means confusion. So, that he confused the languages, and what we're going to try to convey as best as we can tonight is all the occult, pagan, evil practices and customs that were going on during the Tower of Babel and with Nimrod and all, Semiramis, Tammuz, all that. They went all around the world, and you see them manifested throughout so many societies. So we're going to do our best to portray that idea tonight. And that's what Sean did in his Best King Babylon series. So let's look at the same story in Jubilees 10:22, just one verse. And Yahweh our Elohim said to us, see, they are one people. And remember that later, I'm going to play a very awesome video of what Mikey Jenny did, a breakdown of something in modern times that relates to the entire Bible. See, they are one people, and this they began to do, and now naught shall be withheld from them. Come, let us go down and confuse their languages. I got to do it. How does that work on the globe? How are they going down from heaven on this spinning ball going 1,000 miles per hour at the equator? Just saying, moving on. And confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech, and that they may be dispersed into cities and nations. And one purpose shall no longer endure with them till the day of judgment. So here we see in this rendering in Jubilees 10, they had one purpose. They were speaking one language. So here we have unity. And what did the Father do with this unity? He broke it apart and caused division. So there's a lot of people in the Torah community that are all about unity, 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 unity. But unity is not always a good thing. It is if believers can come together and be on the same page, but this is not what's going on here. And this is not what's going on in modern times when they're trying to have a new world order. We might get to that later.
Yeah.
You got anything on this, brother?
No, that's it. I mean, that is their goal, and I just think it's so powerful that that's how people were separated and not able to communicate. And then when we had Pentecost, people were hearing things in their own language that was directly from the Holy Spirit. So that was kind of cool to unite the Father's people when they were pure of heart and obviously not working for the same purposes against the Father like they were there. That's really sort of undoing the enemy's work and uniting the Father's people.
All right, since you did that, you know that I can't remember if I used this joke on the show or not before. You know that they were driving a Honda in the book of Acts?
Oh, yeah. It's the one car mentioned in the Bible. Yeah.
They were all in one accord. Sorry, I can't help myself sometimes. All right, so it would be absolutely wrong of us if we talked about Babylon, the Tower of Babel, and we didn't spend quite a bit of time talking about a certain gentleman named Nimrod. So I think I read last. If you want to get this one,
good,
I think you can handle the name. So you got it.
So. And Cush brought forth Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Father. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Father, and the beginning of his reign was Babel. And Erech and Akkad and Kelna in the land of Shinar. From that land he went to Ashur. Sounds like somebody telling me to be quiet. And built Nineveh and Rehoboth, Ir, and Kela, and Rezin between Nineveh and Kela, the great city.
Oh man, I shouldn't have done that to you.
That was mean.
It's all good. I'm mean sometimes. Just kidding.
Yeah.
So Nimrod's influence on the occult and pagan practices that are still practiced today cannot be understated. Cannot be understated. He had such an influence on so much stuff, and we're going to see that as we go forward. So let's look at Sargon, aka Nimrod. So this is a quote from Yah bless his soul as he rests. Rob Skiba. This is from his first book, actually his second book, Babylon Rising, and the first shall be last. And this is from page 46. It's an amazing book. Let's see, where am I at currently? Page 159. So not all the way through, but it's amazing so far. All right, so this is page 46. Let me read this one real quick. And this is very interesting. What's the point? The point is simply this. After the confusion of the tongues at the Tower of Babel, men went away talking about the same guy, Nimrod, only now in their new language. Thus, Nimrod, the great and mighty warrior, hunter, god, king, became known by many different names throughout the world. With 70 different nations / languages. That's a lot, folks. 70. Not 10 or 15, 70. Coming out of that one event, aka Tower of Babel, it is now easy to understand how this one man could be known by at least 70 different names. Now, this last sentence is very interesting. Not sure it's true, but it's very interesting. In fact, I would submit that this may be the true esoteric meaning behind our national motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one. So very interesting thoughts, Mr. Skiba.
Yes, he always thinks of these interesting things that make you go, why didn't I think of that? That makes so much sense.
I'm not saying I co-sign with every thought and theory he has in his books, but he has some very interesting thoughts to think about. Definitely
miss that guy.
Yep. All right, so this is going to be our first video clip. This will be a familiar face for lots. This is Josh's hero. So we're going to play. This is the first clip of 2 of, I can't remember the name of the video, but it's got a Apollyon in it by Sean Griffin. I think it's a couple years old. He breaks down Nimrod and a lot of stuff related to Nimrod and Babylon in this video. So it's not actually from the Investigating Babylon series, but you would think it would be from what he's talking about. So it's very interesting. Let's check it out.
And so this is where, as we go through a historical search on Baal, and we get this idea of who this Nimrod cat turned in to be, and throughout the different languages. Because remember, at the Tower of Babel, the languages dispersed, and so people spoke different languages and called them different things. So we also see him in the Greeks. He's called Ares, Bacchus, Dionysus, Eros, Hermes, Pluto, Poseidon, Zeus, Kronos. Over here in like a Canaanite concepts, you get him called Mars, Cupid, Vulcan, Mercury, Pluto. I'm sorry, this is still some Greek ideas here. These are just different names. Jupiter, Saturn, Lupercus, Marduk, but yet Marduk is more of a Canaanite name. Nebo is more of a Canaanite name. Cronus is a Greek name. Odin, here's where we go into more of like a Norse mythology concept, whereas Odin, and Thor, that kind of concept, right? Osiris and Tammuz. Osiris here is an Egyptian name. It's actually Asur, and we're going to go into that here in a few slides, and where that name actually comes from, because we see that in Scripture. We also see it in the extra biblical books, and just in general, there was, in Egyptian writings, there was this cat named Ashur, who actually the Greek for Ashur is Osiris. That's the word Osiris is the Greek transliteration of the word Ashur, and so that's where that's just in case people don't understand that. But Tammuz, Baal, as we already talked about, and then Dagon. We see Dagon interacting, during some of the stories in the scriptures where they're calling him Dagon instead of Baal, and because it was all depends on the region they were in, the tribes they were in, the kingdom they were in. Like I said, they just kind of bathed it over with a different look and a different feel and a different name, but it all represented the same pantheon of gods, and they all worshiped them with the same type of practices. And so, this is just a couple of ideas here of what this guy looked like according to the depictions of different cultures. This is a relief bust from ancient Babylon of Nimrod. This is one that's carved in the side of a building in one of the ancient sites. And there's just some common imagery. Anything that has horns on it, anything that has a pointed hat style. This whole concept. These are just, as like I said before, different cultures. he would kind of give himself a different look, different clothes, sometimes makeup, different things as we see in different pictures and personifications of him, because he's appealing to different people, or at least the priests that were propagating this religion were creating the idols to appeal to different people. I mean, the actual guy, Nimrod, was dead for a long time, but we're going to go over why he was personified as a god, a little g god, and why people continue to worship him even after his death, up until the point where he's actually resurrected, and that's what he's spoken of by the Egyptians. This is why I say the Egyptians also worship the sun god, as many people know, names Osiris. Osiris is the phoenix, the only god said to be destined to return at the end of time. Osiris is the Greek transliteration of Ashur, as I just said, and the phoenix idea was that there was this thing that was, died, but it rebirthed by fire, and to be resurrected. Of all the pantheon of gods, and all the, there's all types of other little lesser gods, right? But, Osiris is always the top. He was the only one that's destined in all the stories to be resurrected, just like the Bible, right? The Bible claims this guy comes back, and we're going to go over those verses here in a minute. Ashur is there in all her company. His graves are about him, all of them slain, fallen by the sword. This is Ezekiel 32:22. This is just a passage talking about when the Messiah returns on the day of the Lord and what he's going to do. Ashur shall not save us. We will not ride upon horses, neither will we say any more to the work of our hands, ye are gods. For in you, Yahweh, the fatherless find mercy. Isaiah 14:3. So the worship of Baal was popular in Egypt from the latter New Kingdom in about 1400 BC to its end. Throughout the influence of the Arameans, they borrowed the Babylonian pronouncing of Baal, the god that ultimately later became Belos, and is identified with Zeus in the Greek, right? And that's where we get this concept of Zeus, who was the most common name in historical research, with all these huge temples. Then Pergamum, there was a temple to Zeus, is referenced in Revelation chapter 2, and there's all this stuff is this stuff is in the Bible everywhere. Just people don't know what they have to do a word search on the words to know what names are being presented.
There's a couple comments I have to, before you say anything, I got to do it. All right, let's see. So Christine said, wow, so many names, LOL. I agree. And the most appropriate comment was, repackaged poop is what it is.
Yeah.
Main sister, I agree. What do you think about all those names?
It makes the research on this topic hard, because there's so many different titles for this guy, and that's why when we start looking at some of the symbology, it all starts to look alike. When you look at their past idols that have been found in artifacts and compare them to modern day artifacts and things, they always look nearly identical. We'll see that later.
So you have some stuff on Baal. Do you want to share that right now before I play the second clip of that video?
The Baal symbology? Oh, we can wait. Yeah. We can
okay.
Wait.
All right. So let's play the second part. Yeah, and I will agree that it is hard if you have all those titles and all those different societies throughout history. So it's like, where do you start? Which one do I look at first? Because there's so many. So let's check out another clip from the same video, and Tyler shared the video in the chat. It's called, let's see, where was it? Apollyon, the beast that was and is not and yet will be. And it's a great video. It's about 40-ish minutes long. So these are just a couple clips out of it. And here's the second clip.
In Genesis 10, we tells of his birth, what family he came from. Genesis 11 lets us know that he's running. Your Gesture 9 helps us understand, Genesis 11, that he was the first world leader. That's why all these nations started personifying him in idol worship and form. And he was actually in charge of the Tower of Babel project and getting everyone to work towards that, and all the drama that ensued there. And then the languages changed as a result of that story. So then throughout each language, they would refer to their king, who's still their king, because he reigned securely over the whole earth. But that miraculous event that changed their languages, now they're referring to him with different names. And that's what we discussed all throughout the different regions, that he was Baal, Molech, Osiris, Apollo, and the Greek transliteration of Apollo is the word Apollyon. All right, and that's the word we actually see in Revelation. Revelation 17:8 says, "The beast that you saw was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, those whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. So these people are amazed when they see something that comes out of the bottomless pit. Now, will they be actually at the pit to look in it and see? I mean, I doubt it, but because there's other context that talks about how the bottomless pit is open and everything in Revelation 9. But they're going to recognize this character, is what this verse is saying. They're going to actually see it, and they're going to recognize, hey, behold, this was the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. Now, they may not call him the beast, obviously. They're going to probably call him a name with reverence. But the Father's actually given us several different descriptors of this guy. You know, he's called the treacherous one, Isaiah 33. 2 Thessalonians 2:8, he's called the lawless one. Here he's called a beast, right? Because this is the anti-Christ, the anti-Messiah. He's the opposite of all the goodness that Messiah is. And so that's why Scripture makes sure to reference him properly. So you get the right idea that this guy's trouble, get far away, there's no good involved in him, it's pure destruction. And so that's where in Revelation 9:1-2 it says, Then the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven which had fallen to the earth, and the key of the bottomless pit was given to him. He opened the bottomless pit, and smoke went up out of the pit, like the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by the smoke of the pit. Okay. So here, just like we saw in Revelation 17, it said that the beast you saw that shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. So we know where this beast comes from. It's out of the bottomless pit. And this part here is talking about how this pit was open. There's a lot of smoke that covered the air. So these are all very literal terms. All right. Other things come out of the pit. But then it says here that a king over these other things that came out of the pit is the angel of the abyss. And his name in Hebrew is Abaddon. And in the Greek, he has the name Apollyon. It's in Revelation 9:11. Now, many people get confused with the idea of angel, right? And that word in the Greek just means messenger. A lot of people think that it doesn't necessarily talking about someone that serves God in the heavenly realm, right, above the firmament. It just, that literal meaning of that word means messenger, right? And so we see later how he's a messenger, because he has, here in Revelation 13. Well, we're going to go over Revelation 13 in a minute, but he's working in the authority of the beast, right? So he's the mouthpiece for the dragon. So, excuse me, I said that wrong. The beast is working in the authority of the dragon. He's the mouthpiece for the dragon. So that's why he would be called a messenger, right? The dragon is, of course, Satan. And in that personification, Ra was considered Satan in ancient Egypt.
What do you think about that?
That's deep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Deep is the pit.
Yeah.
That's just the pits.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so I have a question though. I forgot to ask you at the beginning. So this is the Truth About Cosmology series. Why are we talking about Babylon? How does that relate?
Maybe they tried to go through the firmament at some point. Tried to smash through it.
So maybe we should know the enemy's plan to better understand the Father's creation, maybe?
Yep.
So let's check out one of the verses that he just read in that video. It is interesting. It's 9:11, Revelation 9:11. Warning. Watch out for this guy. And they have over them a sovereign, the messenger of the pit of the deep, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, but in Greek, he has the name Apollyon. So here's the interesting question, and this follow-up slide is very interesting. Will this Apollyon character be a manifestation of Nimrod? So let's go back to the well and read another quote from Skiba's book on page 55. So it's from Babylon Rising again. Quote, page 55. I don't know if I said that. Quote, I talked to a special operator. Now he's quoting somebody else, so this is not Skiba's words itself, just for context, so nobody gets confused. I talked to a special operations general who validated that, verified that, and absolutely was there when Gilgamesh's, from the Epic of Gilgamesh, way back in the day, remains. And his words were, he was in a state of remarkable preservation. Okay. And by the way, that was in a literal vicinity of where the United States built its largest military complex. I believe it's one of the largest military complexes in the world. We're not talking about the United States. We're talking about overseas. I believe it's in the Middle East somewhere. I forget the town or the city. The advanced team, special operations, went in there to grab all of that stuff. What I'm telling you is based on a multi-star general's eyewitness report to me who was there. So it's a high-ranking military person. He said they have Gilgamesh's remains. So if they have Gilgamesh and he is Nimrod, they got it. And the whole point was to extract the DNA. Why in the world would they want to extract Gilgamesh's or Nimrod's DNA?
He talked about a messenger. They're trying to give everybody messenger RNA.
Maybe they're trying to bring this guy on the scene at some point and fulfill what this verse is talking about. Maybe.
Possibly.
Very interesting to think about.
Yeah, all these things they do are so biblical.
Oh, yeah. A lot of stuff they do is so strategic. And we're going to get to something later that absolutely blew my mind earlier. And I've been researching what they label as conspiracies for a long time. So I've seen a lot. So it takes a lot for my mind to be blown. But my mind was mush for about 30 minutes after. I'll let y'all know when we get to it. You want to read this one about Astarte?
Sure. Astarte was the most important goddess of the pagan Semites. She was the goddess of love, fertility, and maternity for the Phoenicians, Canaanites, Aramaeans, South Arabs, and even the Egyptians. Her name was Ishtar in Babylonia and Assyria, where she was also the goddess of war. Some Old Testament stories call her Ashtaroth and describe the construction of her altar by King Solomon and its destruction by King Josiah. Astarte was identified with the planet Venus. The Greeks called her Aphrodite, and the Romans knew her as Venus. This is really, this stuff is like they're restoring these places now. I put a slide related to that in our presentation where they're restoring Ishtar's Gate, the U.S. Embassy over there, which I don't know why the U.S. Embassy would use our money to do that.
What country?
That's what they're doing. It's in, I think it said Baghdad. I think, let me see. It was U.S. Embassy, Babylon funded. It was part of a $3 million donation by the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad.
You want to pull it up?
So that is really, really current news. Yeah, can you pull that up? I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
Pull that up from here.
I'll let you get to whatever slide it's on.
There it is. Yeah, it says in the article I found, it said Babylon is coming back to life with its famed Ishtar Gate. And for those of you, I think everybody here knows that's where we get Easter, the name Easter from Ishtar, to be restored by this summer. And so $3 million, the U.S. is over there. And the purpose of a U.S. embassy, I didn't even know. I'm like, what is their purpose? I always hear that word. It sounds so prestigious, the embassy. But we have them in different places where we're supposed to help relationships with these countries and assist American citizens who travel there. So restoring the Ishtar famous gate, whatever this thing is, like this pagan thing, like why is that something they're doing? That's not even like their purpose to restore pagan structures. I mean, would they restore a biblical archaeological site for Moses or anything? No, they're doing these things.
They'll cover that up.
Yeah, they'll cover that and hide that. They're not going to make any news articles about that stuff, but this is going to be in the news, and they're going to promote it, restore it, and get the people over there excited, taking pictures and, to these same pagan statues and promoting that stuff.
When was this written?
I cannot remember when it was written.
It has 2018 on the right side, but that doesn't mean that's when it actually took place. Yeah,
it's probably 2017, maybe 26, somewhere around that time period. So kind of
5-ish years ago. Wow. Mm-hmm. What a great use of $3 million. Thanks, guys.
Yep. We could have fed some other hungry people. Nope. We're going to resurrect Ishtar's gate.
Oh, man. Keep your seatbelts on. It's only going to get worse the more we cover. All right, here we go. So back to this slide. So we have, let's see, Ashtaroth, Astarte, Aphrodite, Venus, and Ishtar all represented here. So we have we have pretty much the same deity, just different names, different cultures, aka the Queen of Heaven, pretty much. So here we have the four that were mentioned in that. I think it's the World Book Encyclopedia. Yeah. So Astarte, she's kind of looking like in the Egyptian style there, and then Aphrodite, and then looks like Venus kind of smoked a fatty.
Yeah. The sarcastic teenage eye roll there.
She looked like she's got the munchies and needs something to drink. She's smoked out with the homies. And then Ishtar on the right. Oh my. So basically we had this repackaged Babylon. What started at the Tower of Babel in Babylon, or maybe even before that, but it definitely carried on all throughout the world. Just the same deity, different names, different cultures. So let's check out a couple verses talking about the Queen of Heaven in the Old Testament, and then I'll give you the one in the New Testament because I think it's less reading. Maybe less names too.
Yeah.
All right, so in Jeremiah 7:17 and 18, do you not see what they are doing in the cities of Yehuda or Judah, and in the streets of Jerusalem? The children are gathering wood. So they're making the children partake in these pagan practices. The fathers are lighting the fire, and the women are kneading their dough to make cakes for the sovereignness of the heavens. In the King James, it says Queen of Heaven. And to pour out drink offerings to other mighty ones to provoke me. And then jump over to Judges 10:6, we'll see a similar verse. And the children of Israel again did evil in the eyes of Yahweh and served the Baals and the Ashtaroths. So there's a lot of times you'll see these two together. So you'll see the Baals and the Ashtaroths together in Scripture. I mean, we could probably had another 30 slides just talking about those kind of scriptures. Mm-hmm. And the mighty ones of Aram, and the mighty ones of Zidon, and the mighty ones of Moab, and the mighty ones of the children of Ammon. So they're going against what he talked about in the Torah. Do not learn the ways of these nations. And Jeremiah 10. And the mighty ones of the Philistines, and forsook Yahweh, and did not serve him. And let's jump over to the New Testament. And Joshua, read this one.
Yeah. For a certain man named Demetrius, a silversmith, who made silver shrines of Artemis, that's a familiar name, reminds me of NASA's new mission, provided no little business for the craftsmen, who, having called them together with the workers of similar trade, said, Men, you know that our wealth is from this business, and you see and hear that not only at Ephesus, but throughout almost all Asia, this Shaul has persuaded and turned away a large number, saying that they are not mighty ones, which are made with hands. And not only is this trade of ours in danger of coming to rejection, but also that the temple of the great female mighty one Artemis, whom all Asia and the world worship, shall be regarded as worthless and her greatness diminished. So you have literally the undoing of those works, and people who were profiting off of that, just like they're profiting off the lies now, being upset because the truth about our Father and his love and his beloved Son destroys the need for any of these so-called mighty ones. They're powerless.
Oh, darn. They're going to lose their income stream.
Yeah.
Making their pagan deities. So it's interesting. So a couple things I want to point out before we go forward. So the last part of the verse says, but also that the temple of the great female mighty one, Artemis, whom all Asia and the world worship. So the world. So this was a form of the Queen of Heaven, female deity. It was worshipped all over the world. So this is another name for the same deity being worshipped. So now remember the name Artemis. That's going to matter later in the presentation. So here's a question to ponder. Can we see any statues of this Queen of Heaven in modern times?
Bum, bum, bum.
Even though you showed one earlier, we're going to show another one.
Oh yeah.
In America. So this is the Statue of Freedom. I recommend everybody look this up. And she is perched above the top of the Capitol Dome in Washington, D.C.
Yes, and the cap on her head, the little feathers with the head of the eagle or phoenix, whatever that is identical to the one in the painting called Satan Summoning His Legions. And the painting of that, I believe, is older than this statue. It's like the exact same headdress, or what do you call it, headdress. It's pretty.
Yeah, and I don't have a slide with the Statue of Liberty, but I mean,
I could show you. I've got some in mind that look. You can see the. I don't know if you can see the head, the feathered cap that he's wearing, but
yeah, that's awesome. Maybe you can show that. Let me do this next one, and then maybe we can show yours. So here is the same representation, but inside. So this is also the Statue of Freedom, but inside the U.S. Capitol Visitors Center in Washington, D.C. And I borrowed this from one of Rob Skiba's sites, and he just superimposed what we just showed on the last slide on top of this, because it's the same female deity just inside this building as opposed to on top of the Capitol Dome. So you want to, let's see, you want to pull yours up about the Statue of Liberty?
Yeah, sure. I can see if I can pull that up, because the guy, the painting that I found a few years ago of, sorry, brief nudity there.
Satan likes that.
Let me see if I can find the statue's connection. There it is. Okay, so you look at what Satan over here on the left is wearing. It's the exact same thing on his head. The feathers, it's hard to see because it's a darker image. You have to brighten the image to see it. But when it's brightened, you can see that same little eagle or phoenix, whatever that is, on top of the head with the feathers spread out, just like you saw in the Capitol building. So it's like they wore the same hat. And the Satan picture is older than the Statue of Liberty, but it looks like the Statue of Liberty is just that dude in drag. This is not anything new. Like I said, nothing new under the sun. Right. They literally made a copy of that, and it's also very similar to the statue on top of that building. So it's sort of like a mix, a merger of Satan and those queens and all that stuff. They just kind of compiled it all into one being, along with like Helios. And so,
of course, Helios is in the mix.
Yeah, got to throw him in there. Their sun god worship.
Is that a magazine on top right?
That's a movie. I think it was a movie that came out called Hell Satan. And so that
what year was that?
I think it was like around 2012-ish. I can't remember. It was a while back. Everybody's in an uproar, but I didn't even make any connections with the whole Statue of Liberty until recently. Like, oh my gosh, those Satanists, they know what this statue really represents. And most people have no clue that it's their light bearer. That's Lucifer, Helios, so many different things kind of rolled into one.
Yeah. What's the name of your video where you talked about this? I know it was a 2-part series.
Oh, trying to think. Yeah, there was Who They Are and Why They Lie. I might have touched base on this.
You talked about the RCC and the Pope as well in that series. Very good. Go check it out. Subscribe to Josh's channel too. Is that all you got on the Statue of Liberty and Queen of Heaven?
Yeah, it'll tie in with some other stuff I'm doing, so we can come back to it.
All right,
some other sides. Yeah.
This is flowing very nicely.
As keep always. It PG, says Dennis.
Yeah, sure, y'all say keep it PG, guys. Come on, Josh.
I'm trying. I got that video. I had that in a video. I put it on TikTok, like with a 1-minute video with all these connections.
Oh, no.
And it got deleted for nudity. And I was like, he doesn't even have a part. It's like it's not even there.
Yeah, it's not even there.
Like, I don't even know what it is. I guess he was preparing for his role of the Statue of Liberty.
So speaking of the he side of things, are there any male pagan deities in Washington? So Josh touched on that a little bit. So I have one that's very interesting. So this might be hard to read at home, so I'll read it on my end. So let's look at Zeus a little bit. This is in Washington, D.C., folks. Fire, greatest of discoveries, enabling man to live in various climates, use many foods, and compel the forces of nature to do its work. Electricity, carrier of light and power, devourer of time and space, bearer of human speech over land and sea, greatest servant of man itself unknown. Thou hast put all things under his feet. So on the left side, I have an arrow pointing to the lightning rods, which proves that it is Zeus. So here we have a representation of Zeus in Washington, D.C. So I know everybody lives in America. We love our country, we love our freedoms, but I mean, we have to keep the perspective of how this nation was founded. And I'm going to get into that later with a couple of videos to really drive that point home hard. If you want to see a bunch of Freemasonic and pagan and occultic stuff, just go on a tour of Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Oh man, that place made my skin crawl. I couldn't even do it. It's like I just could walk around the outer edge of it, and I'm like, I don't even feel like I could go in there. It's so evil. Like,
yeah, that's one place to vacation I'll pass.
mm-hmm.
All right, so here we're going to get into those videos. So these next couple of clips are from a documentary called Riddles in Stone. I would highly recommend everybody check it out. It's amazing. And it does a deep dive into the origins of the United States. So let's check out clip number 1.
Arcane symbols and mythological designs, both inside and outside government buildings, have caused many to wonder if the city somehow represents a hidden agenda. This becomes increasingly important as America's current place on the world stage ignites firestorms of controversy. As the United States is the most powerful nation on earth, many have wondered, what is America up to? Could the purpose of operations currently carried out by the U.S. government somehow be reflected in the design of its capital city? At the center of controversy are secret societies. Many of America's leaders have belonged to them right from the nation's beginning. Our current president, George W. Bush, has admitted to his membership in the mysterious Skull and Bones Society.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
wild.
sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
Skull and Bones has to be the most powerful, one of the darkest of all secret societies that exists on this planet. It is about greed and it is about power.
The idea for Skull and Bones is said to have come out of Germany in the early part of the 19th century. The society was founded at Yale University by William Huntington Russell, along with Attorney General and Secretary of War Alphonso Taft, whose son, William Howard Taft, would go on to become America's 27th president. Some believe the Society's foundation demonstrates a clear link with what may be the oldest society of all, Freemasonry. The Society is shown here in 1993, reenacting the laying of the cornerstone for the United States Capitol on the 200th anniversary of the event.
Know all of you who hear me, we proclaim ourselves free and lawful Masons, true to the laws of our country, professing to revere God and to confer benefits upon mankind.
This is the ceremony in which Senator Strom Thurmond, himself a 33rd degree Mason, took part.
Senator Thurmond, we would like you to join in this.
Since the William Morgan incident in 1826, when Americans uncovered a secret cabal working inside the government, the presence of Masonry in places of power has always sparked debate. But their influence in American government is undeniable.
This is the same Bible upon which Presidents Clinton, Bush, Carter, and George Washington were inaugurated president.
Of America's 43 presidents, at least 15 are confirmed Masons, though some say the number is even greater. In addition to the Capitol, the Freemasons have laid the cornerstone for every major building in Washington, D.C.
The cornerstones of the President's house, known to us as the White House, the Washington Monument, the Smithsonian, Independence Hall in Philadelphia, incidentally by past Grandmaster Benjamin Franklin, and Constitution Hall stand out among many others as outstanding examples of cornerstones which have been laid Masonically. The cornerstone of the United States Capitol, however, stands out above all buildings erected in the free world as the seat of government for our people.
This bronze plaque, located inside the U.S. Capitol, marks the spot where the original cornerstone was laid by George Washington, the first American president and a Freemason.
George Washington is probably the most famous Mason in the world.
The George Washington Masonic Memorial is entirely dedicated to the idea of Washington as a Freemason.
What do you think about that, brother? They're in front of the U.S. Capitol.
Wow.
Masons are doing ritualistic ceremonies. That's wild.
Mm-hmm. And the first president was a Mason, and there's the Washington Monument. It is literally a giant obelisk in the middle of D.C. That is.
Yep, we're going to get into obelisk next. So, is there something you want to share right now before we transition into obelisks?
Oh no, go ahead. I'll if there's anything I can connect later, I will, because that's a big topic.
So this is the second clip from that video. We're going to get into obelisks and some other stuff. But this is pretty much going to drive home the Masonic origins of the U.S. I love the country where I live, but we got to be real about its origins. We can't say it's a biblically based country, or Judeo-Christian, as they say. That ain't true. Sorry.
I believed it for years, so
I did too growing up, and then not anymore. And I don't celebrate July 4th anymore after learning some of the stuff I'm about to play in this video. Not just the obelisk, but some other stuff you shall see in a second.
But the priests believed there was a second level. The priests believed that nope, the physical sun is not the supreme being. It's the spirit which flows through the physical sun that is the supreme deity. However, there was another level, and the priests didn't even know it. It's those that were involved and elevated to if I would have told you this 15 years ago, I might have gotten shot. But this is now, I'm so glad now that this is easy to talk about. The third level, which is a higher level of understanding, said, nope, it's not, that's not the sun. The sun is not the supreme deity. Nope, yes, spiritual energies come through the sun. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the star Sirius.
The dog star.
The dog star, because the dog star was everything to the ancient Egyptians.
Sirius is said to have been the most important star in the ancient world. It was considered the brightest star in the heavens, many times brighter than the sun. The Great Pyramid was built to synchronize with Sirius, so that the light of this star would shine into the Queen's chamber, supposedly to cast a beam upon an initiate during a ritual.
Sirius is considered to be the dog star. It's considered to be the most evil star in the Egyptian pantheon. And the reason for this is because in ancient Egypt they depended on the Nile. And during the time when Sirius is in its ascendancy, which is in late July and early August, was the time of drought. It was a time when the Nile was at its most weak in terms of being able to be used for crops. And so the Egyptians thought this as a time of blasted blight, drought, and evil.
It seems strange then that Sirius should be related to the founding of America. According to Masonic author David Oveson, the Declaration of Independence was signed when the sun was in alignment with Sirius in July of 1776. It is, however, appropriate that Sirius should be related to the most Egyptian-styled icon in America's capital city, the Washington Monument. Oveson writes that in 1848, when the cornerstone of the Washington Monument was laid, the sun would have passed over Sirius. He goes on to say that in the course of the ceremonial, the star Sirius would have been seen on the eastern horizon. It would have been rising over the Capitol building to the east of the monument. The monument itself was originally designed by Freemason architect Robert Mills. Mills was trained by two fellow Masons, James Hoban, who designed the White House, and Benjamin Latrobe, who designed the U.S. Capitol. Mills' original design seemed to combine the whole pantheon of pagan mysteries, an Egyptian-style obelisk surrounded by a Roman colonnade with Greco-Roman-looking statues all around it. According to the original plan, the monument should have been built directly south of the White House. But as with every plan, things change.
When they went to build it, and when they calculated what the weight of the monument was going to be, they determined that that precise spot, that the foundations and the bedrock at that precise location would not safely support the weight of the monument.
As a result, the monument was shifted slightly to the east. While it is not in a perfect alignment with the White House, it would end up in a perfect north-south alignment with the Masonic House of the Temple, which was built some years later. The construction for the Washington Monument began on July 4, 1848, with the laying of the monument's cornerstone by Freemasonic President James K. Polk. The project itself would take over 30 years to complete, during which time funding for the project would be scarce, the American Civil War would take place, and many ideas about the monument would develop. When the aluminum capstone was finally set on December 6, 1884, the end result would be a much simpler and more Egyptian figure than was first envisioned. The shift in design was the influence of George Perkins Marsh, the man considered the father of the modern environmentalist movement. In 1876, Marsh was the U.S. minister to Italy. While there, he spent years studying the many obelisks which had been brought from Egypt. It was he who realized that the height of a traditional Egyptian obelisk was approximately 10 times the base, causing the plan for the Washington Monument to be reduced from 600 feet to 555 feet. As for the colonnade and statues planned by Mills, Marsh wrote, "Throw out all the gingerbread of the Mills design and keep only the obelisk." While a true obelisk is fashioned from a single block of stone, the Washington Monument is made up of many stones. The hope of the Washington Monument Society was that the structure would reflect the idea of out of many, one. Meanwhile, the pyramidion at the top is made up of 13 levels, just like that of the pyramid on the Great Seal of the dollar bill.
Okay, so let me address something real quick that somebody said in the chat. So let's see. Celia Ramos said, "Back to the covenant. Why is the USA such a rich and blessed country other than material wealth? There's also a good level of freedom that even allows us to talk about this." So I am grateful for the freedoms I have. I'm not talking about that. We're here to expose the fruitless works of darkness, like Paul talked about. So I'm not saying everything to do with the U.S. or America is evil, because it's not. That's not what we're saying, because we'll do videos like this and people will take what you're saying out of context. So scripture says not to be like the world. So hopefully people understand where we're coming from and not take us out of context. So there's a lot in that video we just played. So part of the reason, yes, come out of her, everyone. Exactly, Shurion. That's the whole point of this video is to teach people to come out of Babylon. And Babylon is everywhere because Babylon's teaching spread everywhere. So part of the reason I mentioned I don't do July 4th anymore because I trying to think I stopped last year, I believe. So I've been incrementally over the years getting away from worldly / pagan traditions of men. So stopped doing Christmas, Easter, Halloween a good many years ago. And then I think somebody was sending my wife some stuff about July 4th, and I'm like, oh, come on. And then I looked into it, and it's basically they're worshiping the star Sirius. So I'd recommend everybody look into that yourself. We don't really have any slides on that. That's just a side nugget. Since we're talking about a lot of the Masonic stuff that goes on in America today, and even back during George Washington's time. So, so let's get. So since they talked about obelisk, unless you got anything, I'll jump back to my slides.
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah, that was just interesting. Out of many, one. That was the purpose of that, and I thought that was tying into what Sean and that book were saying, were all these names for their one that they worship.
If that's true, that was very interesting of what they were saying at the time that the Declaration of Independence was signed. And there was an alignment with Sirius and other stuff. That's crazy if that's true. But that's purposeful. All right, let me make this smaller so we can read it all. Okay, see. All right, so this is from the same encyclopedia I quoted earlier, the Word Encyclopedia. This is page 482. We're going to look at some obelisks. Quote, obelisk, and this is basically just under the word obelisk. I thought about, let me just look it up, see what they got, and it was very interesting. And it fit like a glove in the presentation. Obelisk is a great upright four-sided stone pillar. Duh. The sides slope slightly so that the top is smaller than the base. The top is shaped like a pyramid because it goes back to ancient Egypt and ends in a point. The Washington Monument, as you mentioned earlier, in Washington, D.C., is an obelisk, one of the most famous ones in the world today. The ancient Egyptians built huge obelisks. Most of them had inscriptions in hieroglyphics or picture writings. Two obelisks, now known as Cleopatra's Needle, and we'll look at those in a second, and they're on the right side of the screen, were originally at Heliopolis, Egypt, which was a city dedicated to worshiping the sun, hence the Helio part of the city. In the 1800s, one was taken to New York City and the other to London. An obelisk from the Temple of Luxor, Egypt, is now in Paris, Place de la Concorde, end quote. So look on the right side, we got part of Cleopatra's Needle that was taken to London and the Victoria Embankment. And then in New York City's Central Park is the other one. How about that? Right in the center of Central Park. Maybe not in the center, but it's in Central Park. So, I mean, wow.
And they take these things from Egypt and Rome and they bring them, like there was times where the Pope would order them to bring them from Egypt. And if you were to break it, you would be put to death. Like these things are important to them. And that's why they import them from Egypt.
And since you brought up Rome, if you look to the top left, one of the most famous obelisks in the world is in St. Peter's Square. And I'm not going to get into the shape. If you see a picture over, there's a lot of debate on what that represents, but I'm sure it's sinister. And so the one that was just mentioned in Paris, France, is in the middle, and then the Heliopolis obelisk in Cairo, Egypt. But we have to remember with obelisks, they are a phallic symbol, and they represent the phallus of many male deities who are worshipped in the past and present, including Osiris. You got anything else on that?
Yeah, there's those things. That looks a lot like the one on St. Peter's Square. Looks a lot like the one near our capital, where you have the same structure in the background. Like the DC and Rome connection is so intriguing when you look at it. Not really intriguing, just
It's
like
wild.
Yeah, it's one of those things you read it and it sounds like you're reading some fiction novel, but it's true the way that it's so intertwined. Like,
Yep.
it's one and the same when you look at it.
And the one on St. Peter's Square, I don't know if you can see it, but if you look it up, there's this cross on the top.
Yeah,
Like that's supposed to clean up that's like putting lipstick on a pig. Like
yeah,
they're trying to make it Christian. Like it's still pagan and a phallic symbol.
It kind of summarizes their whole goal and what they've done to Christianity and what they've done to merge everything back with Constantine. Like it's like, here it is. This is what we're doing. We're merging all of it. Here you go, right there.
Yeah, and that made me think of the interfaith ceremonies they have. If you've never looked into that, and I really should have put a slide about that. It's where you have the like religious leaders of all the major religions of the world, like Islam. Let's see what else. Of course, Christianity, Judaism. Somebody in the Catholic Church comes in there, and they all get together and have a service, and it's all to try to have unity. Of course, you know what that's going to lead to, though. Not the one world. There's going to be a one world government. There's going to be a one world currency, but there's also going to be a one world religion. And those jokers that are part of those interfaith meetings are going to head that up for sure. How about you read this one since you mentioned it to me and it fit like a glove in this section.
Yeah, this was one a subscriber said in the comments, like, hey, have you looked at this version? Because I was talking about obelisk in a video, and it literally says in the ESV, he shall break the obelisk of Heliopolis, which is in the land of Egypt, and the temples of the gods of Egypt he shall burn with fire. So talking about obelisk in Egypt, and the Father being angry, because you look at what's going on there, and it is literally, these things are transported out of Egypt to all the places in the world where there's a big power structure, where like DC, France, Rome, so many places these things just are there, like by chance. Oh, because they just look good, and the decorator of that town wanted it. Like it's all against the Most High. It's all directly out of Egypt, which was close to Babylon, where they sort of merged cultures.
And there's a lot of other verses, especially in the Torah, where it talks about breaking down their pillars. So I'm not recommending anybody doing that in modern times, but there is scripture that talks about that.
Uh-oh, went silent. Might have lost connection or something. All right, can you guys still hear me? Anybody in the chat? I don't know if Matt had to step away real quick. There he is. Uh-oh, he's frozen.
Can you see me?
I think we're back. I hear you now.
All right, I don't know what just happened, but all right.
Ooh.
So let's keep the Egyptian theme here going. So let's transition from the obelisk. Let's look at Delta 18, not to be confused with Delta 8. Sorry, I couldn't resist. All right, so let's look at what Almighty Wiki has to say about Space Delta 18. Space Delta 18, Del 18, short, is a United States Space Force. There you go. This is the Space Force Division unit that serves as the National Space Intelligence Center.
All right, sound went out. I think it's back.
You hear me,
on.
Josh?
I hear you now. Yeah, it was gone for 10 seconds maybe.
Are you there?
Yep, I think we've said too much talking about their obelisk. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. Hopefully the internet will not act crazy. Continue to act that way. Apologize, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's a black image now, but I can hear you.
Are you not able to see the? All right. You see my slide?
No, it's a black screen on my end. I don't know about the video. I can go back to the video and see. I can. I think. Hold on.
I apologize, everybody.
It's a black screen on this end too.
Can you see it now?
We said too much. No video. Can you guys still hear us? I think they can still hear us. I hope, because I can hear you. Hopefully they can too.
Yep, I was wondering if they was going to take this one down or not.
They might be. I wonder what we said. I wonder, maybe we exposed their false gods too much. They don't like that.
Yep, showing a black screen on my phone too. Okay.
Thank you, Tyler Porter.
I apologize.
So audio is good.
I apologize. We'll give it hopefully a couple minutes and they'll stop being 1984 people.
Yeah. We could talk to the moon from a landline 50 years ago. Surely. There we go. I see you again. We have sound and everything's phenomenal. I hope.
They can't handle it, LOL. All right. Let's see. Can you see my slides now?
Not yet. Not yet. Fingers crossed.
Y'all be ladling way too much gravy. Oh my gosh.
Oh, so we can see us. We can just use hand gestures for the pictures we had or something.
I mean, the one I just showed was a killer visual. Like,
yeah. What are they doing?
All right, I'm gonna try yours. See if it.
Yes, if mine works. Yeah, that might have been what it was. They saw the nudie. Yeah, I can see mine. Is it showing up?
Okay.
Houston, we do have a problem. They said.
Can you see my slide now?
Nope.
Right, I can't. I'm gonna take it out and then bring it back in. See if
that might be the problem.
Sorry, guys and gals out there. Can you see it now?
I see it now. Someone said Matt's about to get his door booted. That's
right,
John Lawson. I know that guy.
So I'm gonna, haha, John. So I just want to point out and I actually realized this is a vector symbol. You know, where ODD showed that in his 21 questions. So, if we look at the symbol, so this is the symbol of Space Delta 18, which is a unit of the Space Force. So it's got a pharaoh-looking head over, I'm guessing that's the Earth, and it's looking up to a star. And I'm assuming, I'm not sure, can't prove it, but I think that star is Sirius. Could be wrong, but it makes sense. All right, so let's just keep rocking. So hopefully they don't take it down because it's about to get real again. You still see my slides?
Yeah, I see them.
Okay, so NASA equals Babylon. So let me explain. So everybody's familiar with these two photos. So during the so-called Apollo 11 mission, Buzz Neal and Michael Collins supposedly landed on the moon. So what's the name of that mission? Apollo. That series of missions are named after a pagan deity. So pagan deity number 1, check.
Yep.
Now let's look at the Mercury, which came before Apollo. So you see the patch on the side. It's got Glenn, Grissom, Carpenter, some of the well-known astronauts. And I think the gentleman that said he couldn't feel the radiation was part of those missions. So let me read this real quick from nasa.gov. And this is under the section America's First Astronauts. On February 20th, 1962, an Atlas rocket successfully carried. It's not Senator. What would that be?
He's a senator now, I think. Eventually was, and then.
Oh, okay.
He's gotten in trouble recently.
Never. John Glenn and the hopes of an entire nation into orbit aboard Friendship 7, a flight that ushered in a new era of space travel that eventually led Americans walking on the moon by the end of the 60s. Glenn was soon followed into orbit by colleagues Scott Carpenter, Walter Shira. Yep, there you go. I got the names for you. And Gordon Cooper. Their fellow Mercury astronauts, Alan Shepard. There he is, Mr. I Can't Feel the Radiation.
Yeah.
And a very interesting person, Virgil Gus Grissom. If you haven't looked into Gus Grissom and the stuff that happened to him when he hung that lemon and after, I would highly recommend you research it. Not going to say any more. Flew earlier suborbital flights. So here we go. They are paying homage to pagan deity number 2, Mercury. And there's some occult imagery in the patch on the right. We don't have to go into that. And fast forward to today, the Artemis program, and I think the rocket's called Artemis 1. It's a unmanned moon mission, which hasn't happened yet, and they put it off how many times yet? 2 or 3 times?
2 for sure. I don't know. It's weird that like with the Apollo missions, this was advertised worldwide. Everybody was tuning in, and with this, I follow the space agencies. I've subscribed to them, and I had no clue they were going to do the launch the day that it was happening. I knew it was going to happen or attempt to happen, and of course, it's like, oh, we're not ready. It's got to be so perfect, and so they scheduled it again. Same thing. Oh, we're still not ready. They just got to postpone it and just keep doing that, like until the recession kicks in or whatever. Like it's getting ridiculous.
Why does it need to be unmanned if they did it with 3 men over 50 years ago? But anyway, so remember the name of the deity that was worshipped in Acts 19? It's the same name, Artemis. So here we have NASA paying homage to pagan deity number 3. And Tyler had an awesome comment. He said, NASA is a cult to the core. And right from the start, it was all about the worship of pagan deities under the guise of science. And I would say amen and agree, while others may not. I mean, I could put probably, 40, 50 slides of them paying homage to different deities. They even have I forget what it was. It was something about an asteroid or something. It's called Osiris Rex, but it had Osiris in the name. So time and time again, NASA to pagan deities. So let's get off NASA's case for a little bit, and let's look at, do you know what we're looking at right now, brother?
I just saw this in one of Sean's videos the other day. I forget what it was called. That's Tower of Babel reconstructed, and
it's actually the EU headquarters, and I believe it's in Brussels. But I mean, I think they fashioned it. I agree with Sean's assessment after the Tower of Babel, just to mock us in our face, which they do all the time in so many ways with NASA, movies, music, ceremonies, all kinds of stuff. So now I'm going to play a video from Mikey Jenny that is an amazing breakdown of something that happened recently. I believe it was earlier this year. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. So let me upload this video real fast. All right.
Show you. So I don't know if you guys heard about the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games. It's just like the Olympics, but it was held in the UK. I don't know much about it. This is the first time I actually heard about it. It happens every 4 years. And somebody sent me a video, and I was just mind blown at how blatant they are now. They don't even hide this stuff anymore. They don't sugarcoat it. They just come right out. This is a ceremony. They call it a ceremony. This is a ritual done right in front of the masses. Check this out. This is the beginning. They started out the Olympics game or whatever with this cinematic video. Now just watch what's happening in the video. It's soaring through space, shows Saturn, which is it's synonymous with Satan. Then what do we see here? Falling stars falling to Earth. Who is this representing? We're seeing literally fallen stars. It says right there, the death of a star. So these are stars falling to Earth. The Bible says that 1/3 of the stars were cast to the earth. Lucifer and his angels. Now she comes out and she searches for this crystal, one of the fallen stars. She picks it up and she prays to it. We should have audio on here. She's praying to it. The announcer even says she whispers her hopes and dreams. This is what the announcer is saying, that she's whispering her hopes and dreams to this crystal, which is a fallen star. Oh, wait, it gets better. This is just the beginning. So look, all the nations of the world, all the many peoples and nations and tongues and multitudes gathered together. What does this make you think of? Think about it. Many peoples gathered in one place together. I know it's hard to see, but if you look down there where it's circled in red, we're about to get into what that shape is. Think about this. I want you guys to put your Bible glasses on. Many peoples of all nations are gathered in one place in front of this interesting looking tower here. So they start out with a song. I hope this audio is on, but this is Duran Duran. Listen to how this is a family friendly event. This is for all people. Listen to what the song lyrics say. Don't say a prayer for me. Save it till the morning after. Morning after what? What? Don't say a prayer for me. What kind of message is that? And save it till the morning after. The morning after what? They're going to tell us. Here's that interesting tower. I'm not going to say what I think it is.
I'm trying the video again since it's being stupid. They just don't like what we're talking about.
Leave us alone.
Freedom of speech.
Coming.
No.
Don't make us go after you early.
All right, let's try this again.
What I'm about to show you. So I don't know if you guys heard about the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games. It's just like the Olympics, but it was held in the UK.
No, it's black.
I don't know much about it. This is the first time I actually heard about it.
All right, so I apologize, everyone. This is wow. I mean, they took the stream down for like 5 minutes last time, and here they are. So let me bring my notes back up. So basically, he's doing a breakdown of the Commonwealth Games, I believe it was in Birmingham in the UK, and there was a ceremony honoring Baal, and there was something that represented the Tower of Babel, and the lady was representing the whore talked about in Revelation. I really wish the video played. That's so frustrating.
We'll have to link that in the description or somewhere. I saw that. It was actually, it was pretty in your face.
So can you see my slides?
Yep, I see it now.
All right. So this was one of the verses that he picked up. Yeah, there was a big bull the lady was riding when he said that in chat. Yes. Oh, man. It's all good. Sorry, everybody. I like to give a great presentation, and sometimes the controllers don't like what you have to say when you're exposing them. So y'all go check out that video that Mikey did. It's on Little Light Exposing Darkness, but the name of the channel is Little Light Studios, and I forget the name of the video, but he's exposing that evil ceremony they were doing. So let's read about the woman, and she's actually dressed in purple and scarlet in that actual video too. So it's blatantly obvious. They're mocking you in your face. Commonwealth Baal worship. Thanks, Tyler. That was the name of the video. All right, so let's read Revelation 17:4-6 real quick. And the woman was dressed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup filled with abominations and the filthiness of her whoring, and upon her forehead a name written, a secret, Babel or Babylon the Great, the mother of the whores and of the abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the set apart ones, and with the blood of the witnesses of Yeshua. And having seen her, I marveled, greatly marveled. And then there's also, I'm going to follow it up with the reading in the Torah. There's, a lot of occult witchcraft stuff that went on at that Commonwealth Baal worship ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to read this one, brother?
Yeah, sure. When you come into the land which Father your Elohim is giving you, do not learn to do according to the abominations of those Gentiles. Let no one be found among you who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire. They're still doing this stuff today.
Yep.
Or one who practices divinations, or a user of magic, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead. These are things, the familiar spirits going on, the deceivers that are people, you watch on TV, those Long Island medium, all those people talking to the dead.
Yep.
It is familiar spirits, demonic spirits they're talking to there. And it says, for whoever does these are an abomination to Father, and because of these abominations, Father your Elohim drives them out from before you. Be perfect before him, your Father, your Elohim, for these nations whom you are possessing do listen to those using magic and to diviners. But as for you, Father, your Elohim has not appointed such for you. These are real things, and they are not for us to partake in. We have direct communication with the Creator. We do not need to be talking to these mediums. They give you information that is for your destruction. It's not something that would profit you, like prophecy. And that was Deuteronomy, chapter 18.
Apologize. I almost had to sneeze.
Okay. Thought I might have lost you again. I was like, no, not again.
All right. So this part's very interesting. So just like NASA equals Babylon, I would say Hollywood equals Babylon. So it's interesting. I was texting Mikey Jenny, and I was telling him I was going to play some of that video, which didn't play, which is frustrating. But anyways, and he said, yeah, they're about to make a video about that. And I was like, what are you talking about? Because I told him me and you were doing a stream on Babylon, and I wanted to play that video as part of it because it's literally Babylon in modern times. And he told me about that movie, and I watched the trailer. I don't know if I'd recommend everybody watching it because it's terrible. But I got a slide about it, so let's check it out. So literally the name is Babylon.
Oh, wow.
So let's look at a very short description of video off the IMDb, which is like a movie review site and whatnot. A tale of outsized ambition and outrageous excess, it traces the rise and fall of multiple characters during an era of unbridled decadence and depravity. Unbridled depravity in early Hollywood. And so I watched the video, and let me pull my text up, what I sent Mikey Jenny. I said, I just watched the trailer. It's hard to follow. To me, it looked like just a blatant glorification of lust and sin, which if you watch the trailer, you'll see that. And that's literally what they describe, unbridled depravity. And then I looked up if it was out already. And guess what date it comes out on? December 25th. How about that?
Isn't that Nimrod's birthday? Or was it Tammuz?
Well, let's see. So I gotta, but that just blew my mind. I was like, they literally have a movie called Babylon. They're exposing themselves on how evil Hollywood is in the beginning. Now, do we think that Hollywood's not evil now?
Yeah.
You think the people that work for them are not sinful now? Or is it worse since we're closer to the Messiah's return and the the end of days or end times? So let's look at Babylon Rising one more time, page 81. And I do want to say before we get into this, brother, is there something else you want to share? Because I'm really close to the end of my notes.
I know, that's good.
Okay. So this page 81 on Babylon Rising. Keep in mind that DC stands for District of Columbia, which essentially means our capital is the domain of Isis / Ishtar / Semiramis, the mother, half-sister, and wife of Nimrod. There's Nimrod again. She was the driving force behind deifying Nimrod to establish the mystery religions of the world, as well as corrupting the true flesh of Yahweh. After having incestuous relations with her father, Cush, she produced a son, Nimrod, whom she later married and gave birth to Tammuz, thus forming the original unholy trinity. I don't believe the Trinity scripture, but I'm just reading Skiba's quote because he did believe in the Trinity, so that's why he has that in here. But me and Josh both reject the Trinity. Just FYI.
Interesting, yeah.
Upon which both Christmas and Easter are really based. She truly is the whore of Babylon spoken of in the book of Revelation. So let's look at Ezekiel chapter 8. We're going to see, if I remember correctly, this is the only time in all of Scripture Tammuz is mentioned. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I think that's correct.
Yeah, it's the only one I could find.
So this is very interesting. So it's going to be verses 9 through 16. And he said to me, go in and see the evil abominations which they are doing there. And I went in and looked and saw all kinds of creeping creatures, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel, carved all around on the walls. All these idols. And facing them stood 70 men of the elders. So a lot of folks. Of the house of Israel, and in their midst stood there you go, Josh. I did you a favor. Yazin Yahu, son of Shaphan. I like the challenge of the names. I don't get them all right, but it's fun trying to get them right. Each one had a censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. And he said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the dark? Each one in the room of his idols. So it's idol worship here. For they say, Yahweh does not see us. Do we ever think that sometimes when we're sinning? He's like, oh, Father can't see us. Yahweh has forsaken the land, and he said to me, you are to see still greater abominations which they are doing. And he brought me to the door of the north gate of the house of Yahweh, and I saw women sitting there weeping for Tammuz. There he is. Then he said to me, have you seen this? Oh, son of man, you are to see still greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the house of Yahweh, and there at the door of the Hekal of Yahweh, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs toward the Hekal of Yahweh, and their faces toward the east, and they were bowing themselves eastward to the sun. They were worshiping the sun. There it is, right at the end. They were weeping for Tammuz. They were worshiping the sun. They had all these idols. So we can see Babylon and the Babylonian practices all through Scripture. What say you, Josh?
Yeah, that's one of those that really looking into the sun god worship and seeing that this was what made the Father upset, that they were doing this back then. Women weeping for Tammuz. Why was that a big deal? Why would that be something that makes him sad? If this is just some son of a king, like this, no big deal. Like, why would that make him angry? Why would he be mad about people grieving? And it's because he was part of that, what Skiba called the unholy trinity. And you're about to see that stuff it's so present day. It's one of the most relevant topics in Christianity, is understanding where some of our concepts came from, like you see in Rome with that obelisk with the cross on top. They've mixed it. It's mixed in there, and it's heartbreaking to see, from the Father's perspective, what it's like for his truth of what he did with his beloved son be altered within a few hundred years after his mission. They've altered it in Rome, and we are living in Rome, it seems like, when you look at DC.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
So it's time to let go of all these Babylonian traditions of men, brothers, and sisters. So I got one verse, and we can come back to it if we need to later. So, hey, you want to read this one, brother? I read the last one.
Yeah.
It's close to the end of the book. It's not all the way there, but it's close.
Yeah. And after this, I saw another messenger coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was lighted from his esteem, or lightened from his esteem. And he cried with a mighty voice, saying, Babel the Great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, and a haunt for every unclean and hated bird, because all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her whoring, and the sovereigns of the earth have committed whoring with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the power of her riotous living, or riotous living. And I heard another voice from the heavens saying, Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues. And so, coming out of Babylon, something a lot of us are doing. It feels like we're coming out of Egypt, coming out of Babylon, coming out of so many different things, which those two are kind of the same.
Tomato.
Yeah, Egypt, Babylon. Copy and paste.
Yeah, copy and paste pretty much. So it's time, brothers and sisters, come out of Babylon, not just partly or halfway, but as much as we can. It's time to repent of all these Babylonian practices that we still have in our lives. And it's a process. So you have anything in your presentation you want to share?
Yeah, there's a few things. That's a really good way to kind of end. And I wanted to demonstrate a lot of these things that we're seeing and why we're seeing them real quick. I've talked about this in other videos.
All right, let me pull yours up.
Yeah, just some really interesting connections. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these slides. Just showing you that history is repeating itself, like the theme of this video. Repackaging. All these are all ancient statues of Bel, and some of them look a little different, like the one in the middle and on the right in Rome. And interesting that they have people at the bottom laying there looking up at this thing in the same place where they would have sacrificed children many years ago. So doing that for the sake of art, they tell us, but it's all right there, like our first Masonic president here in the middle, and Baphomet, that right hand in the air, left foot forward, like they're doing the Macarena. They need to turn themselves around. You have the Bell Temple entrance starting to look familiar, starting to see that sun god stuff that they tie in. We looked at this earlier, and it's all coming from Babylon and Egypt, which was right next to Babylon. You see those chains there symbolizing that. And this is something my brother showed me with Bel, is they would resurrect this archway from the Temple of Bel in all these different places around the world on these high little, I guess what they would, unholy days of Satanism, on special times for them. They would put these things up and say, oh, it's just for some art exhibit. Like, really, there's no reason. There's no art. I mean, you're resurrecting a literal just like archway. This thing is hideous looking, and it's to pay tribute to Nimrod, to Bel's, all their false gods rolled into one. And you see here, Bel actually looks like the old images of Nimrod that we've seen. So I do believe it's literally the same thing.
That's right, Josh.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
I can now, yes.
I just want to say, since you're talking about Baal, I'm just going to throw this in. Okay. I just want to say that since you're talking about Baal, in some instances and contexts, Baal equals Lord. And that's all I'll say. Anybody that gets it knows what I'm talking about. So go ahead.
Yeah, that was the meaning of that name. I think there was many different lords or bells. They had different names, and like that quote from many one. And that Tower of Babel, and you had this was similar to the quote in Rob's book, where they were part of that Trinity. And this is in Babylon. You can see Tammuz in the middle, Semiramis, and Nimrod. And when you look to, I'll skip that verse because we've read that one, how close those kingdoms were. They're extremely close. You could literally walk along the coastlines to get from Kingdom of Babylon to Egypt. And when we look to Egypt, that's why we see the same Trinity aspect with their gods. And this is about to get kind of comical. They always had theirs in their what they called triads back then, with Osiris, Isis, and Horus, which to me that looks a lot like Tammuz right there in the middle. See the pose, see the staffs that he's holding. It's very similar. And this was the one that women were weeping over. That part of their unholy trinity, the women weeping for Tammuz that we read earlier. That is that character. And I believe it's one and the same with the Egyptian connection here, and that has resurfaced in America, in DC, which I always want to call it Rome now because it literally is exactly. They copy these things from Rome, and you always look at it and think they're just wanting to be capturing that artistic way of life and all of that, but it's for a reason. And that's why I think the oldest Catholic church in DC was erected by a Jesuit. And when you go through history, it transitions smoothly into Rome hijacking those pagan lies and bringing them to us and eliminating the Father. And the word tells us that the spirit of the Antichrist denies the Father and the Son. And so what better way to deny both of them by simply merging them and going against the words that the beloved Son told us are extremely important. We've been on here for a while, so I don't think I should go into the connections of DC and Rome unless you want me to. Did you want me to go into that? How DC, when it was founded, was literally called Rome? I don't know if we had enough time to go into that. We can. But I guess I might make it a little Cliff Notes thing because I want to get to the point here. So you can see, if you haven't seen the videos we've done about this, Rome and DC. I don't want to lose my spot here. Let me skip forward. There's a history lesson. I'm skipping through these timelines because we've covered so many of this stuff. But it's research. If you've never looked into this stuff, you've got anger. Maybe you think, hey, they're going after the Trinity. They don't really know what they're doing. This is one of those things that you need to pray about humbly and sincerely, because what they've done, the persecution and the merger that happened where they changed the Sabbath, they changed all these things. This merger with Babylonian sun god worship stuff was going on. And that's why when you look at the foundation of the capital, this is back in 1663, looking back to the property that would become the capital site anyways. It was inscribed in the Maryland property records as Rome. And so that title, I was like, this has got to be nonsense. This is conspiracy stuff. And you look into it, it was called Rome, Maryland, and its owner was named Francis Pope. And so its southern boundary of the property was shaped by a river named that they named for the river that runs through Rome, Italy, the Tiber. And so they nicknamed that guy Pope of Rome on the Tiber. And I believe that's significant. That's why we have a Pope now who is called Pope Francis. Excuse me.
And I always like to say nope to the Pope.
Yeah. And so this stuff intertwining, repackaging Babylon, which became Rome essentially, and Rome was that beast system. I mean, it just grew around the entire world. It still lives on, and especially through America right here, as you can see. So let me skip past this one. Oops, going out of order here, guys. Sorry. But yeah, there you have it. The Pope Francis in Rome on the Tiber. And this guy, his name was not originally Pope Francis. Find that hard to believe. His name was actually, let me see if I can skip to that, Jorge Mario Bergoglio. So Gog, you've heard about Gog and Magog. Yep. That was him. And the Pope is a Jesuit, obviously. So that 10-mile square tract of land that became Washington, D.C. was also owned by none other than a Jesuit, this guy, Daniel Carroll, he was a chairman of a 3-man commission appointed by President George Washington, the Masonic president. And he was a Roman Catholic educated by the Jesuits in Maryland and France. And so his signature's also on that Declaration of Independence. So we have more of that Jesuit connection.
So a Jesuit
Bergoglio
signature is on the Declaration of Independence. Wow.
Yep. It runs deep. And so you've got that Gog and Magog connection. And so you guys, a lot of you know of that. I'm not going to get into that history lesson, but his name, Bergoglio, is probably biblical, with, I think, Leo standing for lion. You get the Gog, the bear, Burr. St. Francis of Assisi is who he was named after. And it just gets weirder from there. You see the sun god worshiping in all these old saints, and even becoming a saint is a weird process. You have to have after you die, there has to be people praying to you, which the Bible's against, and you have to have miracles, and then they become canonized and become saints. So that was one of the saints he was named after, was this sun god worshiping Saint Francis, where he even sung his famous canticle praise. It says, "Be praised, my Lord, through all your creatures, especially through my Lord, brother, son." So calling the Son his Lord.
Wow.
And his famous little quote here. And you guys can look into this stuff. This is things that I've looked into over the years that just start showing you how they repackage all of this. All of the stuff that we just looked at, we're told to come out of, and we're literally in the midst of all of it, just rebranded. And it starts getting into the heliocentric model, where Copernicus dedicated his heliocentric treatise to one of the popes, and it was the same pope who eventually approved the Jesuit order.
And a Jesuit also came up with a Big Bang Theory too.
Yes, exactly. Right there.
Oh man, look at that. I didn't even know that was coming. How about that?
Invented it, and you called it. Yeah, that was the guy, that Jesuit priest. And you guys can see that. I'm not bashing Catholics. I have friends that are Catholics. They always say, "Why are you hating on Catholics?" I have a lot of friends who are Catholics, a lot of pure-hearted people. It's kind of like Masons and people that work at NASA. There's a lot of good-hearted ones that have no clue what goes on higher up, how they've been influenced by Babylon and Rome. Most of mainstream Christianity has. So it's not just the Catholics they attack. That's why we have thousands, I think 45,000 denominations. It's ridiculous. They've gone after the truth. This doesn't happen with other religions and New Age stuff. It only happens with the beliefs where people are trying to look to the Most High and they want to muddy the waters. And so taking away the creator, what better way to do that than the Big Bang heliocentric model, where we're exploding, and that sun with the 32 rays. A lot of people are into the numbers and stuff. I don't really get too deep into that. It's all about those healing rays of their sun god. And you see that throughout their ceremonies, where they literally believe that the Messiah is right there present in the middle of this object that's shaped like a sun, and it's called a solar monstrance. And so the solar monstrance, of course, Sol, we've talked about this in other videos on here, being related to their sun god Sol Invictus, and monstrance meaning to show. So showing that it belongs to Sol Invictus. If you look out what that name means, that's literally what it means. They're showing you that it belongs to their sun god, and can't even touch it with your bare hands. It's so sacred. And this makes a lot of people angry, but we're not told at any point in the Bible to hold a graven image and worship the beloved Son as if this is where he's at. It's really
straight up idolatry.
Yeah, so that right there, guys, is showing you these connections. And you have to ask yourself, why would they do this? Well, it goes back to what the beloved Son tells us, who the least in the kingdom of heaven are, who the greatest in the kingdom of heaven are, and who the great are. And it ties a lot into some of the things that Matt talks about, with the Father's words being important, his commandments being important. And if you don't know, just to refresh your memory on who the greatest in the kingdom of heaven are, if you want to be that person, you want to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, he says, humble yourself as this little child. The same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. You have to be humble. That's extremely important. You think of all the things, like which rules do you have to follow to be the greatest? What do you have to do? We always think of all these different things. Humble yourself. It tells you right there. And then whosoever, and now looking at the least in the kingdom of heaven, it says, whosoever therefore shall, starts with the same wording, break one of the least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. Well, guess what? The great in kingdom of heaven are the people who do and teach those. But where this starts to really play out is when you look at what the beloved Son said is the first of all commandments. Remember, the least are the people who teach you to break them. What's the first of all? To hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. And so I know you don't like using the words. I'm using kind of the words that a lot of people understand. For the Father, I didn't actually put his name there. But for people who are just now looking into this, the Pope himself tells us each creature testifies that God is three. And so who are we going to believe? Are we going to believe the beloved Son that the Father sent us? Or are we going to believe the Pope, Rome, Babylon reestablishing itself? So you just have to ask yourself that, pray about it. If the Pope is agreeing with what the beloved Son says and what the Father has told us throughout time when he was giving us his commandments, then I would listen to the Pope. But he is not agreeing with what the Father says, what his Son says, and he is agreeing with what Babylon has done, what Egypt has done, and created a different version of our Father and his Son. It seems innocent like the globe, but I'll let you go ahead, Matt, and say.
I just want to say that I will always take Yeshua's words because he perfectly walked out the Torah. And you can see that in 1 John 2:6, and he taught others to keep the Torah. For example, the gentleman that had leprosy, he told him to go to the priest, which is straight out of the Torah. So and there's many other examples in the New Testament of that as well.
Yeah. So kind of went fast there on a lot of these things. But again, always, when it comes to coming out of Babylon, I believe that's what we are supposed to help people do, is come out of Babylon, expose the lies, expose these practices. It's not going to make you popular. The more you walk like the beloved Son walked, the more hate you're going to receive. Yep. I receive hate on a daily basis when you talk about this topic in particular, you get a lot of hate because people are so attached to the versions of the Messiah where he's merged with Babylon. We were attached. I loved Easter growing up. I loved all of these pagan holidays. We were groomed into doing that from early on. We, get in the Christmas spirit, get in the holiday spirit, get in the Halloween spirit, get in the team spirit, every spirit but the Holy Spirit. And so coming out of Babylon is getting away from all those unclean spirits. And so they're showing themselves, but it is definitely time to come out of Babylon and just live for the Father, keep him first, and be humble. Those are going to be the greatest. And when you come to the gatherings and see people like Matt and other brothers and sisters like in the chat here, you guys are humble. It shows, it shines, and it uplifts us because we are in spiritual warfare. It does kind of get us down sometimes, the negativity, and you guys really keep us doing what we do in spite of all that. Because even if it just wakes up a few more people in this age of censorship, or when they're turning our screens black and hiding our videos, it makes it worth it to see you guys sharing that light and not keeping it hidden, because that's what it's all about.
Well, I could have said it better. So I apologize, everybody, for stuff that's out of our control. That video I wanted to play was absolutely amazing. But it's all good. We did the best we could with 1984 style censorship. Anybody that's read that knows what I'm talking about. They got me last when I did Nephilim, which if you haven't watched that, I highly recommend it. But they took it down for like 5 minutes. One of the videos triggered something they didn't like, and they're like, and then eventually came back up. So, yep. Thanks, Wendy. Wendy said no need to apologize. Not your fault.
Yeah.
Hey, it was better than I think the first time I had you on, we were talking about the firmament and your power went out.
Yeah.
So this was a lot better than that. At least we made
had to be controlling the weather at that point with the lightning strikes, the false lightning or something.
They hit you with HARP all the way in North Georgia.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So I hope this video was a blessing. And please take what we presented seriously, because coming out of Babylon is serious business.
Yeah.
And we need to incrementally over time come out of Babylon, come out of the world, and do the best we can. I know it's hard with certain things, but I mean, you gotta choose. Are you gonna serve the Father or not? Are you gonna keep His commandments or not? Are you gonna repent of addictions and other sins that you have in your life, or are you gonna keep walking in those sinful paths? So thanks to everybody for sticking with us and showing us mercy during the issues. And I hope this video was a blessing. And we're gonna jump off here. You got any other parting words of wisdom?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Tyler Porter. I thank you for sharing the link to our channel, and Matt for all the work he's done, helping get me motivated and working hard, even if it's just doing one chapter in a book and the back cover. The back cover of all that, like I need someone to kind of like boss me around, and he's been a good boss, to work for, and so yeah, it's been a much needed blessing to get me active and reaching more people in different ways outside of just my comfort zone here. And there was one other thing I was going to say, and I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, thank you guys for that. I wish it would come to me because I was sitting there thinking I'm going to say this. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, thank you, Dennis and Debbie. I need you guys to boss me around too, like you said.
Yeah,
yeah.
You'll see them on October 16th, so they can boss you around then.
They better be there. That was awesome getting to see them in person.
Yep.
So
yeah, they want a copy of the book. So, all right, everybody, thanks again for jumping on, and make sure to subscribe to Josh's channel, and please share this video and subscribe to Back to the Covenant as well. So we're gonna jump off here. Y'all bless and shalom from under the dome.
Good night, family.